All right, today we are diving into blockchain. And look, if the first thing that pops into your head is Bitcoin, you're not wrong, but you're only seeing the very tip of the iceberg. This technology, it's on track to change, well, just about everything, from how we handle our money to how we might even vote. So let's break down what it is, and more importantly, why you should care.
To really get what blockchain is all about, let's start with this one big question. I mean, what if you could actually trust what happens on the internet without having to put your faith in a single company or a bank or a government? That idea, as simple as it sounds, is the revolutionary concept at the very heart of blockchain.
So, what in the world is a blockchain? You hear all the jargon, all the technical terms. Let's cut through all that noise. The best way to think about it is with a really simple but powerful analogy: a shared notebook.
Okay, so at its core, a blockchain is just a digital record book, a ledger, that isn't stored in one place. Instead, it's copied and spread across a whole network of computers. So back to our shared notebook. Every time a new transaction happens, it's like a new entry is added that everyone with a copy of the notebook can see instantly. And here's the magic trick. Once a page is written, it's there for good. You can keep adding new pages, but you can never, ever go back and erase or change the old ones.
And this is where it's so different from the systems we use every single day. Think about your bank's database. It's centralized, right? The bank owns it, the bank controls it, you just have to trust them to get it right. Well, a blockchain completely flips that on its head. It's decentralized, which means no one person or company is in charge. Trust isn't placed in an institution anymore, it's literally built into the system with some very clever math, making the whole thing transparent and incredibly secure.
All right, so we've got a handle on what it is, but how does this whole system actually work without a boss? Let's pop the hood and take a look at the mechanics of this, well, unbreakable chain.
The name blockchain is pretty literal. It really is a chain of digital blocks. The best way to picture it is like a train. Each carriage on the train is a block, and it's filled with data, like transaction records. Now, every new carriage isn't just hooked on. It's cryptographically locked to the carriage right before it. This creates this incredibly strong chronological chain. If you wanted to go back and secretly change something in an older carriage, you'd have to break the lock on that one and every single carriage that came after it. It's basically impossible to do without everyone noticing. So, how does a new transaction actually get on this train? Well, first, it gets sent out to the entire network. Then, all these computers on the network, which we call nodes, check to make sure the transaction is legit. Once they're validated, they get bundled together into a new block. But before that block can be added to the chain, the whole network has to agree. This is called consensus. Once everyone agrees, that block gets locked onto the chain, and that's it. It becomes a permanent, unchangeable part of the record.
So how does a network with no one in charge agree on anything? That's where consensus mechanisms come in. The two you hear about most are proof of work and proof of stake. Proof of work, which is what Bitcoin uses, involves miners using incredibly powerful computers to solve really complex math puzzles. It's super secure, but man, it uses a ton of energy. A newer, more popular approach is proof of stake. Here, users lock up, or stake, their own coins for the chance to validate transactions. It provides the same security, but it's way, way more energy efficient.
Now, this is really important to get. Blockchain isn't just one single thing. It's more like a whole family of technologies, and different types are built for totally different jobs. One size definitely does not fit all here. First up, you have public blockchains. Bitcoin and Ethereum are the most famous ones. The open city analogy is perfect. Anybody can join in, anybody can participate, and anybody can see the entire record of transactions. They're designed from the ground up to be completely transparent and decentralized.
Then, on the complete other end of the spectrum, you've got private blockchains. Think of these like a company's private internal network. A single organization is in charge, they decide who gets to join, and the whole point is to prioritize speed and privacy for things like sensitive business data.
And sitting right there in the middle, you have consortium blockchains. This is kind of like a cooperative. A specific group of companies, maybe a bunch of banks or partners in a supply chain, share control of the network. So it's more decentralized than a private chain, but it's still not a free-for-all like a public one. And finally, there are hybrid blockchains. And yeah, you guessed it, they try to give you the best of both worlds. They let an organization keep certain data private and controlled while still using a public blockchain for things that need to be transparent and verifiable. It's all about finding that perfect balance.
Okay, this is where it gets really, really exciting. The technology itself is fascinating, I get it. But what can you actually do with all this? beyond digital money. Let's jump into some of the real-world uses that are popping up right now. One of the most mind-blowing things you can do with a blockchain is something called a smart contract. It's not a contract in the legal sense. It's basically a computer program that runs on the blockchain and automatically does things when certain conditions are met. The digital vending machine analogy is perfect. You put in a coin, that's the condition, and the machine automatically gives you a soda. The code has to run. It's an agreement that works without needing a middleman or even trust.
And it's these smart contracts that are unlocking all this incredible potential. In finance, they let people lend and borrow money without a bank. In supply chains, you can track a head of lettuce from the farm all the way to your grocery store. We could use them to secure our medical records, build tamper-proof voting systems, or even let gamers and artists have true ownership of their digital items through NFTs. The big idea in all of this is cutting out the expensive, slow middleman.
Now, as revolutionary as this all sounds, we have to be realistic. This tech is not perfect. It's still pretty new, and it's facing some major hurdles on its way to being used by everyone. So let's get a balanced picture and look at the road ahead.
So what are the biggest roadblocks right now? Well, for one, scalability. A lot of these chains are just too slow for millions of people to use at once. Then there's the huge energy consumption we talked about with networks like Bitcoin. On top of that, governments are still scratching their heads trying to figure out how to regulate all this. And let's be honest, using it can still be way too complicated for the average person.
This chart really puts that scalability problem in perspective. I mean, look at this. Bitcoin can handle maybe 7 transactions per second. Ethereum is a bit better, around 15 to 30. But when you compare that to something like Visa, which handles thousands of transactions every second, well, you see the massive gap that needs to be closed.
But even with all these challenges, the core idea, the vision, is just so powerful. I think this quote sums it up perfectly. Blockchain isn't just a technology, it's a new way to trust, transact, and interact online. It's a fundamental shift, not just a small upgrade.
So what we have here is a brand new foundation, a new set of tools to build a more decentralized, transparent, and user-controlled internet. The potential is staggering, it really is, but the road is definitely still under construction. The question isn't really if this is going to change things, but how, and what are we going to decide to build with it? What comes next?